Hello, my name is Nick Pert. I'm a chess grandmaster from England. My career highlights include winning the World Under-18 Championship and the British Championships. I've also played for England on several occasions. In this video series, which is about revealing Modern Grandmaster Secrets, I look at various different stages of the game and various themes, and I provide examples and also an interactive section for the viewer to have a go themselves to see if they've understood the material. I just want to quickly look at this game as an example. This was an ending which I actually witnessed all the way back in 2000 between Grandmaster Nigel Short and Mikhail Gurevich, two incredibly strong grandmasters in their day. And it was played in the 4-CL, and they reached this king and pawn endgame. It was black to play, and Gurevich had to be very careful now in order to secure the draw. So if you want to have a go yourself, then you can pause the video and just try to figure out the draw and continuation. Okay, so the best move here for black is the move king to b8. Well done if you found that move. The problem with advancing the a pawn is if you move the a pawn somewhere, let's just say you play, well, either square really, let's say you play a6, and then white moves his a pawn. At some point, the white king is going to come into b6 or to b5, and it's going to win that pawn. So, for example, a5, king b5, you have to play king c8, and white will just simply capture the pawn. So you can't move the a pawn too early. The other option for black would be to retreat the king to c8. Now, king d8 and king b8 I think are both okay, but king c8 does not work. White will play the move king to d6, and after, let's say, black plays king d8, trying to gain opposition, white now can continue with the move pawn a4. Okay, so black might respond here with a move such as a5, but then white will be able to play his king back to c5 and go and round up the pawn. Similarly, if black plays a move like a6, white can again change strategy and bring his king round, and he'll soon be able to round this pawn up and win the game. So after a4, black would be forced to continue with the move king to c8, and now white can continue by playing pawn a5. So black has really two options in this position. He can either play a6 or he can play king d8. If black plays king d8, then white will play c7 check, king c8 and king c6. Black's in a stalemate position, but unfortunately for black, the a pawn hasn't moved yet. So black will now be forced to move the a pawn, and after king b6, black king will have to come out to d7, and white can play king b7 and promote his pawn. So this is a winning variation. Instead, if we go back to the position here, after king c8, a5, black could play the move pawn a6, but white will be able to win simply now by playing c7, and after king to b7, king d7. One last little trick to watch out for after king a7, you don't want to queen here because that would be stalemate. However, white could play something like king c6, for example, and then after black moves, then queen and checkmate on the next move. So returning to the game, after white played king c5, black played the move king to b8. Now in the game, Nigel Short played the move king d6. I actually think a4 may have been a slightly more difficult try for black to deal with. For example, king c7 is more or less forced, and then a5. After white plays a5, black can play a6, but then I think he will probably lose because white will play the move king to d5. And we do actually have a quite famous study now in the position, a related square study. In this position, whenever the white king is on c5, the black king needs to be on c7 in order to prevent the move king to b6. Whenever the white king is on d6, the black king needs to be on d8, so that if white pushes forward, black can play king to c8, and then king to c6 would be stalemate. And because you know that the king on d6 is related to d8 and c5 is related to c7, when the white king's on d5, the black king has to be on c8. So the way that white would win this position is to do a sort of triangulation by dropping his king back to c4. Now remember, when black plays king c7, white can play king c5 and then come into b6 and white wins. So black instead would have to pass, say king d8 for example, and now white passes with the move king d4. Again, king c7 is met by king c5. So black has to instead play king c8, and now white can play the move king d5. And unfortunately for black, he's now in a difficult position because king c7 is met by king c5. White has effectively lost a tempo through the triangulation, and the related squares are working in white's favour. If king d8, king d6, king c8, and now white can win by playing c7, the black king has to come to b7 and then king d7, and just again making sure you don't stalemate, followed by queens, and white is winning. So if white had opted for this move a4, king c7 and a5, the only drawing move in this position is actually to return the king back to b8. If black plays the move king c8, king d6, again we know as soon as you push that pawn, that's a lost position using the same techniques as before. In fact, you can win a lot more easily because you can just play c7, and then king d8, c7 check, king c8, king c6. Black has to move the pawn, and white can play king b6 and will be able to promote. So it's a little bit tricky to understand, but I think if you play through it a couple of times, you'll be able to get the hang of it. So black would actually have to play the move king to b8 now. If white pushes the pawn again, black can draw quite easily now because there are lots of stalemate positions. So for example, king to d8, the standard king and pawn versus king defense would actually work here. And if c7 check, king c8 would lead to a draw. The last try from white would be to play king d6, king c8, and now pawn to c7. But here black can play a6 at the right time, and we notice that the white king is not able to go and collect the a pawn because king c6 would be a stalemate. So that's a little bit tricky, and if you need to go over it again, then please feel free to do so. In the game, white played the move king to d6. Black responded with king to c8, and white now advanced his pawn to c7. Okay, so maybe just take a moment, have a think about this position. If you were black here, what move would you play? If black continues, well, black can't move the king here. If the king comes out, white king goes to d7 and black is lost. So black really has two options. He either plays a6 or he plays a5. The problem with the move a5 is that white can meet it with the move a4. And now we have to just bring the king out and allow white to win. However, Gurevich found the correct continuation and played pawn a6. And now after king goes to c6, he can play pawn a5. White is not able to play a4 because that's stalemate. So Nigel Short played king to b6 and black played pawn a4. Black has successfully managed to reach a drawn position. If the king goes after this pawn, black will simply capture the c pawn and then wait with his king in the corner. So in this position, knowing that there's no chance to win anymore, Nigel Short played king c6 and agreed to a draw. So quite a complicated endgame, but quite an interesting one. And I've tried to look at several interesting endgames in that section, and also looked at lots of different types of endgames in another section as well. So hopefully there's plenty of material there that will help you to improve your understanding.